And that's one of the big things I try and get to all my clients is, look, it doesn't matter if there's a blip in the road. Understand it's just a blip in the road. If you're driving along in your car to get to somewhere and you hit a bump in the road, you don't just stop your car and say, well, that's the end of the journey, I'm going to stop now. You keep on driving. It's just a bump in the road. It happens.
Welcome to the Carl Rand Show, a weekly podcast designed to dig into the lives of everyday people. People who are making a positive impact, people who have risen above and overcome obstacles. Insights and stories from ordinary individuals who inspire us all towards the truly extraordinary. Here's your host.
Okay, this is the Carl Rand Show, and we've got Iain Jack with us today. And Iain, I wanted to have you on today because really, like, power fitness and kind of my philosophy is very much about like helping people at different levels. So we help them with the physical, we help them with the mental, spiritual, emotional, kind of like all of the facets. And what I think you can offer us today is really a lot of that physical, right? Physical fitness. How can you help us with physical fitness? And then just talking about your life and talking about the things that you're passionate about is also going to help us and really add value to those who are listening. So thanks for being here, Iain. Really happy to have you here.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. It's so fun to talk to you. So why don't you start? Just tell us kind of where you're from, Iain. Obviously, you're not from kind of where I'm from. You have a different accent, but tell us where you're from and kind of how you grew up, just a little bit about your family life and stuff.
Yeah, man, cool. So I live in Scotland. So for anybody that doesn't know about Scotland, it's actually a really beautiful country, but it rains a lot. So you'll hear people refer to Scotland as sunny Scotland. That's a bit tongue in cheek. So it's if we get sunshine, we tend to be out with our tops off and our shorts on because it's not something that happens very often. So I was born in Scotland. I've lived here all my life. I live in a wee sleepy town called Rosyth. It's just kind of north of our capital. But yeah, so I mean, growing up, I wasn't always a fitness instructor, to be honest. I kind of fell into that role. But growing up, I was always a fat little kid. My mum and dad used to tell me it was puppy fat, and I'd grow out of it and all that kind of thing. And I waited a long time to grow out of that puppy fat. It didn't happen the way my mum told me it was going to happen. So yeah, I mean, growing up, I used to get bullied quite a lot at the school because I was always the little fat kid at the school. My habits around eating were terrible. Like a vegetable was a swear word to me. I wouldn't eat vegetables if you'd put anything like that on my plate. So and those behaviours followed me right through into kind of early adulthood. So I think it was 2009 before I finally started to change my ways. And that's when I then started to kind of move more into the fitness side of things. But it was up until that point. I used to smoke. I used to drink. I took drugs quite a lot. I worked in the license trade through my kind of late teens and early 20s. So I was kind of heavily involved in the kind of the party lifestyle, if you will. So kind of drugs and alcohol were a big part of my life. And it wasn't until 2009 actually. My 2009 was just before I turned 29. That's when I finally started to kind of change things around. So and then started kind of backed in the smoking. I stopped drinking quite as much. I gave up the drugs and I joined the gym, and that's where the journey kind of really started, to be honest. So I mean, I didn't have a clue what I was doing though. I just want to emphasize that I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah,
but that was definitely the catalyst. That was the start of the change. So
well, I'm excited to hear about that, Iain. So can you tell us, like, okay, so first of all, what got you into the drugs and alcohol so heavily? And then what was sort of that turning point for you where you were like, okay, no more of this. I want to get in shape. I want to start just living a better life, I guess.
Yeah, man, for sure. So to be honest, the drugs and alcohol thing was that actually happened when I was about 15, I think, maybe a little earlier than that. My first taste of drugs was when I was, believe it or not, I was 13 years old. We lived in an okay little bit in Dunfermline, but then unfortunately, my mum and dad both lost their jobs during one of the kind of little recessions around about that time. So we ended up homeless. We lived in my auntie's house, but all of our possessions were in her garage. So we slept on our living room floor, and all of our worldly possessions were in her garage. And then we got a house. We got housed in one of we call them council estates. So I don't know what you guys would call that over there, but I think it's like state operated housing or something. I don't know what you would call it, but
yeah, like government housing. I think we call it government housing or something like that.
Yeah, something along those lines. So we ended up in a place. It's called Abbey View, and it was the worst area in Dunfermline, which is the town that I lived in. It was really rough. There was loads of fights and just it was a rough area. And that's, we're grateful that we ended up with a house, but we did have a roof over our head, but it completely changed the whole path of my life, to be honest. Because up until then, I'd been pretty sheltered. I lived in a little shelter. I was happy in my wee life. I lived in a nice wee street, and then all of a sudden, I was dropped into this war zone. I was like, oh my God! And the people I ended up hanging around with, they were quite heavily into. I say heavily into drugs. They weren't. I mean, it wasn't like heroin or anything like that. It was more things like amphetamines and ecstasy and then cannabis. So my first taste was of cannabis. I started smoking some cannabis, and then from there, I delved into some amphetamines, and that was as far as I took it. To be honest, I didn't really do too much in my teenage years. But while I lived in that area, I certainly smoked a lot of weed. I smoked a lot of cannabis. And then we moved out of there. Luckily, my mum and dad managed to get us moved out of there. I mean, I think it was about 4 or 5 years we lived in that area. By that point, the damage was done. But yeah, we lived in that area for about 4 or 5 years. And then we moved down to where I live now. I live in a place called Rosyth now, and that's we've lived here now for the last, that was 1997. 97 that was. So we've lived there since then. Wow. And that's when I then got into the bar trade. I think my dad knew a guy that ran the local pub. So I went down there and I got involved working and banged the bar with him. I started off as a glass washer in that bar. And then, that kind of started the whole journey working in up the licensed trade. And again, the drugs wasn't probably too prevalent at that point. It wasn't kind of too much. I kind of more went down the drinking line. I was still smoking cannabis, but I was more kind of drinking beer. I got involved in drinking beer. I started enjoying that. And then as I started to venture into the nightclubs, that's where things like ecstasy and cocaine started to get introduced into my life. And then I got caught up in that whole lifestyle, and that was me. And I think I started on that path in 2001. And man, it lasted until probably about 2005, 2006. But it got to a point that I was heavily dependent on ecstasy to see me through a week. I smoked cannabis every day. I drank alcohol pretty much every day. How I managed to hold on to a bar job, I'll never know. But that was pretty much my life. And I lived off pizzas and ice cream. That was the only food that I ate. To be honest, and cheesy boxed macaroni stuff that was pretty rank and horrible. But yeah. That was my life for a long time. I suppose when you asked me what the catalyst for change was, the reason that I kind of changed, it was 2009 was the year that it changed. I was so depressed. I was in such a horrible place. I was in a job that I didn't like. I'd actually came away from the bar trade and I was fitting kitchens at the time. I hated my life. I hated the job that I was in. I knew that, I always felt like I was destined to do something different. I always felt like, and I don't know if that's something that everybody feels like they're destined to do more. But I definitely felt like I was destined to do more in my life. And I knew that wasn't it. And I wasn't happy in my relationship at the time. Nothing was aligned. There was nothing kind of really clicking for me. And as I say, I was horribly depressed, and I actually broke up with my girlfriend, who is now, strangely enough, and thankfully, my wife and the mother of my daughter. So we managed to fix things, but we had that breakup. That there was the change. That was the thing that kind of tipped me over the edge. And I went through a 2-week period of kind of soul searching, and then I was like, oh my God Almighty, I was crying every day, and just. Yeah, that was a really difficult period, but I came out the other side of that, and it was my mum, strangely enough, introduced me to I don't know if you've seen the video The Secret, or if you've read the book The Secret.
I've heard of it, yes.
Yeah, that was the book that kind of started my whole personal development journey. So I read that book and watched the DVD, and then I just thought that watching this, I was like, it makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. I just need to think about things and magic will happen, and that didn't happen ultimately. Obviously, action's what it takes, but I was convinced that I was just going to think about things that were going to manifest in my life. But I've got to be grateful for that book, because that started me on a journey. Then I started to read books and started to kind of learn about developing myself and getting better in myself. And as I say, I literally stopped smoking that weekend that happened, when I broke up with my girlfriend. I stopped smoking that weekend and decided the money that I was saving from the smoking, which was only £5 for a packet of cigarettes at the time. I think it's like £12 now for a packet of cigarettes. But I used that money to then join the gym, and that then was the snowball effect of where things started to kind of really change for me. So
Yeah.
bit of a long one, but
Oh, that's good. That's really interesting. Okay, so what did going to the gym do for you? Like when you first started, you said you didn't have a clue. So how did you go from being this clueless, like, just getting off drugs, trying to figure things out, to like now being a fitness coach? Like there's obviously a bit of a process there, because whoever you're coaching, you obviously know what you're doing now, right?
yeah, I hope so. I think so. Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny because I mean, I had tried to lose weight prior to that, even though I was out kind of partying and stuff. I would wake up some mornings, and as I say, I hated my life. So I'd look at myself in the mirror and think, oh man, like this is not who I want to be. Like I'd buy all these. It was like Slim Fast shakes and Herbalife shakes and all the usual crap of the day,
Yeah.
and none of it ever worked. It was like, oh man, this is so rubbish. I went to the gym. And I used to actually compete in karate. I used to compete, obviously not when I was drinking and when I was on drugs, but in 2006, that was the first year I got selected for a Scotland team, and I was still really overweight. I was still drinking quite a lot at that time. Although I managed to kind of tailor down the drugs, I wasn't as heavy on them. I was still kind of quite heavily involved, but the drinking was still quite prevalent. But when I went to join the gym, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I loved watching MMA, and I noticed that there was an MMA class in one of the studios when I was smashing my life away on this little cross trainer thing. Like, I just need to go on this cross trainer for an hour and go as hard as I can. That'll get me fit. Like, surely that'll get rid of the fat. It didn't work. But yeah, that was the idea. And then I seen the MMA class and thought, I want to do that. Like, that is what I want to do. I want to go and join that. So that's what I did. I spent less time in the gym and joined the MMA class. And the guy that was in there was like, oh, you need to do this kind of exercise. You need to do more resistance-based exercise. You need to actually start lifting weights, and that's going to help you to lose some fat. I'm like, all right, okay. And that made me then start to kind of look a bit more into things. I started educating myself, watching YouTube and buying books as you do. And then I decided, well, do you know what? Actually, I quite enjoy this. Like, I think I could help people to stop having all the problems I had, and actually find a better way of doing this. So I decided then at that point I was going to pack in my job, and I was going to go back to college, and I was going to start learning, which I did at the ripe old age of 29. That was the same year. It was all happened in the same year. So I stopped drinking. I stopped everything in the February, and then I was in college and university. I was in college, by the August, September time. That's when I started. So that journey, that was the start of that journey to there, and that's when I started learning about kind of health and fitness. And then it was a 3-year process in college and university. So, and that's when I then got qualified and started kind of moving towards helping other people. So. Yeah.
Oh, that's so fascinating to me, because a lot of people are like, and I mean, 29 is not very old, of course, but like, a lot of people are like, oh, well, if you don't go to school, right out of high school, you don't go to college and all that, then like, it's kind of too late for you. And I just love that you basically, blow that out of the water and been like, no, if you decide you want to make a change, or you decide you want to educate yourself about something, you can do it at any age. And I honestly think sometimes when people are older, they actually get way more out of it because they're really passionate about it. So many times, kids, they graduate from high school, they go to college, they don't really know what they want to do. They're just kind of like willy-nilly through it. But if when you're older, you know what you want, and and you want to make it happen, and you're passionate about it, right?
100%. It was actually really interesting, because when I went back to college, I was like the oldest guy in our class.
Yeah.
And I was looking at all these kids, and they're jumping about, and I'm like, oh man, will you pay attention? Like just stop. Yeah. And then it actually made me reflect, and I looked and I went, oh man, I remembered when I went to college, like when I first left the school, I went to do furniture craftsmanship because I wanted to be a joiner. I wanted to make furniture. And I was that little guy. I was that dude, because at that point I had discovered alcohol. I was drinking beer and I was smoking weed. And I was like, everybody else is taking, like, there was older guys in my class and they were taking it serious, building their furniture. And I was in there, just mucking around, and I was going in stoned half the time. I was going drunk, and I was like, oh yeah, it's all right. It's college. It's what you're meant to do. And I'm like, oh man, such a waste of time. And so it was that was 2 years of my life that I got a qualification, but I've never used it. So yeah.
I know, it just goes to show like when you're focused, how much more you can achieve. And I think people even talk about that when it comes to like structuring your day or like morning routines. Like for me, if I can have like undistracted time and I drink some coffee and I focus in, and I can get like more done in an hour than I can probably in a whole day of being, feeling distracted and just like not being focused. And I think that's true in so many ways, just being focused and get that stuff done, Yeah,
man, for sure. It's key. It really is. Having that focus is key. So
yeah. So fitness and nutrition is super important to you then, because it kind of took you out of your slump. What do you want to say now? Like, what do you try to do with your clients? So like, how everybody kind of has their little their little way of reaching people. Like, what's sort of your thing, I guess, for getting your clients good results when it comes to their fitness?
Yeah, man, for sure. So one of the big things that I really focus on, and it's more, to be honest, it's more a thing that I hate about the fitness industry. But they say, like, man, I love the fitness industry. I love everything about it. But I think it gets overly complicated. And I think that a lot of the people, especially a lot of my clients or dads, they've been trying things for a long time. They are who I was like many years ago. And the whole, the misconception of the things that they think that they need to do, I remove that for them. I make it as simple as I possibly can. Like, I show them how to eat pizza. I show them how to drink beer. A lot of the guys that I work with, they like to drink beer. They like, they finish their work. Their kids are in bed. They like to have a couple of beers at the weekend. They think if they want to lose weight, they can't do that. I show them exactly how to do that. I still drink beer. I still eat pizza. I still have ice cream. I show them how to do that in a structured way, that they're not actually hating their life in the process. So that, and I do it in a way that I don't use any of the technical terminology. I don't use any of the sciencey speak, because personally I hate it. When I was at college and I was at uni and that was getting babbled in my face, I was like, oh, that just hurts my head.
Yeah.
I do it. I still read on it. I still get myself qualifications. I still keep myself up to date, but I hate all of that side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that the people I talk to also hate that side of things. So I try and make it as simple as I possibly can, so that it makes the journey for them something that's actually enjoyable. So they go through it and go, man, that was actually really good. I enjoyed everything I ate. The exercise wasn't overly demanding. It was really kind of, I meet them where they are, mm-hmm. and then build out something that can fit around about their lifestyle, instead of taking over their lifestyle and they feel it's the only thing that they've got to do. So
yeah, that's so, I love that, because a lot of people too, they come to me, they're like, okay, I'm going to go on a diet. So that means I can't eat anything good. I just got to eat a whole bunch of stuff that I hate, So I got to have, like, I don't know, kale smoothies with like green stuff in it. And they're just like, they're kind of, just drinking this sludge, and they're just like, this is awful. And I'm like, and it's no wonder what happens, Iain, is then they go on a diet and it sucks so bad. So then they go off the diet and they're just like, okay, I'm going to eat nothing but pizza and ice cream now, and, and beer or whatever, because they're like, and then they gain a whole bunch of weight. They feel horrible. So then they go on this crazy diet. So they just keep swinging back and forth and back and forth. And I think it's like, it's so important, like you said, to meet them where they're at, and then like set it up so that they know that, like, yes, you can still have the stuff that you love. You can't have it all the time, but you can still incorporate that so that it's way more sustainable. So they don't just get fit and lose weight, but they actually stay that way. Right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, and that's the key. That's the thing. That's the missing component. And I say this all the time, is losing weight is actually easy. Mm-hmm. Losing weight is the easy part. It's the keeping it off that's difficult. It's because people do the wrong thing to lose it. They do something super restrictive to lose it. They get to this point, and then all of a sudden, as you say, they hate that they've hated their life up until that point, and they just go, and then right back to the start. So it's about having that sustainability throughout the whole course, and not looking at it as a diet. There's no start and end. It's it's a journey. You've got to look at it as a journey. So, and that's one of the big things I try and get on to all my clients is, look, it doesn't matter if there's a blip in the road. Understand it's just a blip in the road. If you're driving along in your car to get to somewhere and you hit a bump in the road, you don't just stop your car and say, oh, that's the end of the journey, I'm going to stop now. You keep on driving. It's just a bump in the road. It happens. So your health and your fitness journey is no different. Mm-hmm. So you've got to look at it as like, I'm starting here. There is no end. You just keep on going, keep on working until you get to where you want to be, and then change your goals and keep on moving towards those. So,
well, there's something interesting I want to talk to you about, Iain, and I want to hear your perspective, because in the marketing world, there's a lot to say for transformational pictures, and I like to have some transformational pictures too, because like we all hear, like people see that and they're like, oh, that could be me, right? It's really great. Yeah. But I think what a lot of trainers do is they train just for transformational pictures. So they take somebody that's quite overweight, they put them on a crazy restrictive diet for, I don't know, 3 to 6 months, however long, and then they take a really great after picture, they put it together, they put that up on their news feed or on their website or whatever, and then that poor person who finished that, their metabolism is so damaged because it was so restrictive. You see them at 6 months later, they're going to probably be as big or bigger, but that but that coach got that transformational picture, and it looks darn good, right? And so I feel like that's a real problem with marketing, and not that we can't have transformational pictures. I'm not trying to point fingers, but I'm just saying we have to be so careful as coaches that we're not just training them for these pictures, Yeah,
100%. 100%. I actually shared a thing from a client the other day. This was a massive win, two huge wins from the same guy. He actually is training with me for free at the moment. He won a scholarship program with me, so he's been training for free, which I don't normally like to do, because if they don't pay attention, I've done it so many times before, they don't pay attention, they fall off. I was like, I'll do it, and he's doing so well. And the big one that I shared it with everybody, was because up until 2-3 weeks ago was when he initially shared this. He hadn't been out playing with his kids for months, almost a year, because he was too embarrassed to be seen outside. He didn't have the energy to keep up with them. The only thing he did was he would go to his work, do his shift, come home, and he would play with his kids from the couch. That was it. He wouldn't really he didn't really get overly active. And then he shared a win in our private members group and said that his massive win for the week was that he actually got up and he went out to the park and he was out playing with his kids in the park.
Oh, nice.
He was out walking around playing with his kids in the park. And I was like, oh man, like that's better than any transformation picture. That is such a big win, because you haven't done that for God knows how long. And then last week, he posted in the group and said that for the first time, and he doesn't even know how long, his scales in his house are actually registering his weight. Whereas before he'd been on his scales and they weren't registering his weight. Now he's on there and he's like, right, now I've got a number. I've actually got a number on my scale. And it's like I don't have pictures of him. I don't have any of this kind of stuff. It's just this written word that he's saying, like, I feel so good because this is happening. And that is why I do what I do. And it's like, I don't care about your picture. Of course, the pictures are brilliant. Yeah, it's awesome. It's really good to see. I like to use the pictures to give back to my clients to say, this is where you started. Look where you are now. Look how awesome that is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just to keep them moving. But it's when I see messages like that coming through from them, I think, oh man, that brings tears to my eyes. That's the one that's why I do what I do. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Same thing with a lot of my clients. It's not so much like, oh, I lost this much weight, or I like that's great too. That's great. But like you said, it's a lot of it's that mindset shift that happens through the whole process. So I think the greatest transformation is what's happening inside. Yeah. And yes, okay, we'll see it out on the outside and stuff. And yes, I want to help people lose weight, and that's all great. But at the end of the day, like anybody can get you to lose weight. Here, have chicken, rice, and broccoli every day, and only have this much. And there you go. You're going to lose weight. You're going to feel like heck after a while, but you're going to lose weight. Or you could just give them little packages of whatever, right? But I think it's like, yeah, what's the big picture here? And I think the big thing is it's got to be a lifelong journey. It's got to be a lifestyle. It can't just be okay, I'm going to get fit for 3 months and then I'm good to go. No, you're never going to be good to go, because you're always either moving forward or you're moving back. You can never just stay still and be like, oh, look at me, look how great I am. No, as soon as you stop doing the right exercise and the right kind of food, whatever, you're going to start either gaining weight or just losing muscle mass or, everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, 100%, man. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. But tell me, you're really passionate. I know kind of why. You're really passionate about feeding the poor, about helping the poor. And that was a lot because when you were young, you were in the state housing, government housing type of thing. You were in a very bad neighborhood, and that's partly or maybe mainly what caused you to get into the drugs and the alcohol so heavily at such a young age. And it was rough times for you. So your passion now has been very much to help the poor. What does that look like? And can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that in this day and age, I mean, obviously now there's even more people having to go on the streets and stuff now because everything that's going on in the world. But before that, when we walk through the local town where I live in Dunfermline, there's so many people sitting outside with blankets wrapped around them and stuff, and it actually breaks my heart. I can't stop at every single one of them and give them all money, but every time I walk past them, giving them money, and it's just. I just think that there has to be something that we can do to get these people off the streets. And there are a lot of movements out there. There are a lot of brilliant charities in the UK that are really, really working to really help the homeless people. But I just think that there has to be a way to get these people off the streets and get them back into some kind of employment, get them back into some kind of normality, if you want to call it that. But I just think that because, luckily, I didn't have to go to that extreme. We didn't have to go to that extreme. We did have somewhere to go. My auntie's living room floor was a godsend. But I look at this and think, my God, man, I can't even begin to imagine how difficult that must be for these poor people. I actually spoke to a guy in Dunfermline, my local town, and I asked him what had happened. I was like, dude, what happened? How did you get to this point? And it just really brought it home that it could happen to anybody at any time. He had an argument with his wife, and she left him, and he lost his job pretty much at the same time. But when she left him, she kicked him out of the house, and both of his parents were dead, and he had moved here for her. So he had nowhere to go. He had absolutely nowhere to go. And she took the house, she kicked him out of the house, so he ended up on the street, and all he had was his rucksack and a blanket. That was it. And I was like, oh my God, man, that is so tragic. And that happened in the blink of an eye. One day his life's set up, he's having a great time, he's got the woman of his dreams, he's living in this lovely house and all this, and then all of a sudden, gone, taken away from them in a heartbeat. And I thought that could happen to anybody, man. And I just, I really empathize with these people, and I want to do whatever I can to really kind of help them like fix their lives, get back on track, and really move themselves. So while health and fitness is my main passion in life, that is such a burning goal for me, is to be able to move towards that and help these people really improve the quality of their lives. So
how do you think, like you had kind of talked to me before, what would be, just give us a little bit of idea of a kind of a thought that you, or an idea that you had to help? Because your idea, I think a lot of people say, yeah, just throwing money at them is not really the solution.
Yeah, I don't think that is a solution, because I think, especially up in Dunfermline, I look at a lot of them, and a lot of them have got like drug and alcohol issues. And again, I can relate to that. So I know I said I throw money, I put money at them. That's a lie. I don't actually money. I tend to walk past the bakers and buy them sandwiches. I'll buy them sandwiches or buy them coffees and stuff and take it out. Where I think a lot of them think, would you just give me some money?
Yeah.
I take them out. Sometimes I'll give them money, but mostly I'll give them sandwiches or soup or whatever else if I see them. But my idea, what I originally wanted to do, and whether this can ever happen now because of the current climate, I don't know. We'd have to maybe pivot and change a little bit. But my idea has always been is I wanted to open up like a restaurant chain, whereby we could get them in. There would be some kind of hospitality out the back of the building. They could stay. We'd give them some kind of hospitality, like some kind of little village that they could stay in. It would provide them with employment, but not employment where they would get paid for their work. Their payment would be that they're looked after. There would be accommodation. We'd give them clothes. We also give them training, so they're then going to learn a skill. They're going to learn how to work in a restaurant environment, which is then going to help to build up a CV for them. And we'd have a pathway in place whereby they could either, once they've graduated, if we wanted to call it that, once they've graduated, they've then got a CV and a shining reference to then move on and maybe get themselves another job, look at maybe getting themselves set up in some housing, so that they've actually got a pathway back into society, if you will. Or we could then put them into one of our units, which would be a non-profit organisation, where they could then go on and manage that to then help other people to move through the same pathway. And behind the scenes, with it being non-profit, any money that got made from the restaurant would get put into a bank account that we set up for them, that they could then get access to once they were clean and sober, and in a position where they were then starting to move back into society to kind of kickstart their lives. And then there would be a kind of a bank balance there for them that they could use to then help support them and work themselves through that transition. So whether that could happen now with a licensed trade, I seriously doubt it, because it is on its backside. But there would be something else we could do. We could set it up in some other way. So that's my burning vision, and I've had that vision since we lived on my auntie's floor, pretty much.
Yeah, I bet. And then you know what? And that's why I think it's so powerful, Iain, when you share your story. Like, it impacts you, right? What you experienced as a kid impacts you, and now you're taking that and being like, okay, how can I help others that would be in similar situation? And I think that's really powerful and good for you. And I think that's a really, really good plan. I love it.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, it's going to take work. It's going to take a bit of work, but I'm determined. I'm definitely going to get there. The fitness side of things is the stepping stone. Like, I'm passionate about this. I don't want people to go through what I went through. With my weight loss struggles, when I was as a kid, I don't want that to happen. But this is a stepping stone to get me into the kind of the bigger vision, the bigger goal, if you will. So
yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. So what would you say, Iain? This is what's kind of your message to the world? What would you want to tell people right now that are listening that you think would just something that that's really burning on your heart, or just a message that you would have for people?
Just be you. Be yourself, man. You are an awesome bit of kit. Like, you are the best in the world at being you, and we spend most of our lives trying to be like other people, or trying to live up to other people's ideals. And the more you try and live up to other people's ideals, or try and live to be like somebody else, the more you're going to feel yourself depressed, because you're not being you. So I struggled with my own identity for a long time, and it's not until you actually step into yourself and start being yourself. And that, like, look, people don't want to be themselves because they're frightened that people are going to criticize them for it. It doesn't matter. People are too wrapped up in their own nonsense to care about what you're doing. So be yourself, be you, be unapologetically you, and just stand up and be all you can be, because you're capable of great things if you would just bloody believe in yourself for a second. So
yeah, I love that. That's so good. And it's punchy, right? It's like, be you, right? Like, and I think it sounds kind of simple, but I think a lot of people, if they actually stopped and just sort of, what am I actually being myself, or am I trying to do this because so and so expects this and this person expects that, and I, and my dad and my mom, and it's like, no, who are you? What do you want to do? What lights you up? What do you have to offer the world? What are your gifts and abilities? Like, and go for it, and don't worry about looking like a geek or looking like, looking weird. Like, just do it. Just go for it. I love that. Yeah.
And I think you said as well there, you said about gifts and abilities, and I know that people watching might look at this and go, I don't have any gifts and abilities. Yes, you do. You do. You absolutely do. You maybe don't know what they are yet, but you do. There's something that you could teach me that I don't know. That everybody's got something to teach. So just be open to kind of receiving whatever messages the world's giving you, and stand up and just be your awesome self, because you've definitely got a message to tell the world, and the world really wants to hear it. So don't hold back.
Yeah, I love that. So Iain, if people want to like find out more about you, maybe ask you about your fitness, or just kind of learn more about you, where would they go? Where's the best place?
So a couple of places. I'm most active on Facebook, so you're more than welcome to add me as a friend on Facebook. I'm on there every day, so I post on there regularly. I go live on Facebook every day. I do have a Facebook group called Fit Dad Revolution. I'm not massively active in there. I'm on there from time to time, but again, if you want to check out, there's some workout stuff in there, and also on Instagram at Iain Jack Fitness. Again, I'm not massively active on there, but you're more than welcome to check it out. But if you do want to connect at all, then just add me on Facebook, Iain Jack on Facebook, send me a message. I'm more than happy to have a chat. So
awesome. Yeah, and if you can't find him, just message me and I'll hook you guys up. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Okay, well, thanks so much, Iain. I really appreciated this conversation, and I feel like we could talk a lot more about all of this stuff, but I feel like, well, we've gotten quite a bit covered. So yeah, thank you for your time and just for the information that you poured out, and lots of really good nuggets in there. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Carla. Thanks very much for having me on, man. It was really good. Really enjoyed it. So thank you so much.
Me too.
Thank you for tuning into the podcast today. I absolutely love that you joined us. I love being able to record these, and I love our guests. It's been so much fun. So thank you. Please like it, share it, comment, do all of the things that you feel like you want to do if you enjoyed this podcast. I really, really appreciate that. And this podcast has been brought to you by my company, Power Fitness Online. So everything that we do locally with our workouts, with our group nutrition coaching, and with all of the other fun events and stuff that we run, we put all of that online. So now you can access everything, even if you're not locally, don't live in our area. So my coaches and I and all my staff, the whole team, we are putting so much work into these workouts. We're filming 5 fresh workouts every single week so that you never have to do the same workout twice. We're also doing group nutrition and personal nutrition coaching so that you get exactly what you need. And you know what the best part is? It's the community. The absolute best part is just knowing that you have the support, that you have the encouragement, that you have everything you need to succeed. So go to powerfitnessonline.com.